Some nights, the bar feels like a living thing. Breathing, whispering, remembering. I'd been bartending at the Clover Room for almost 3 years. It wasn't fancy, but it had history. The kind of place where the floorboards creaked, the ceiling fans spun on dying motors, and the neon signs flickered just a little too much. That night started like any other. A few regulars, a couple awkward first dates, a guy playing sad songs on the jukebox. Routine. Until she walked in. She slipped through the door like she belonged there. Faded jeans, old leather boots, a green jacket that looked straight out of another decade. She sat alone in the corner booth under the blinking Clover Room neon sign. She ordered a gin and tonic, stirred it more than she drank it, and kept glancing up at me when she thought I wasn't looking. When our eyes finally met, she smiled. Not a flirty smile, not a sad smile either. It was something heavier, a kind of longing, like she'd been waiting a long time for something or someone. Her name was Lena. We talked for a bit, easy conversation, movies, music, the kind of small talk that feels lighter than air. But there was something about her, like she carried a secret she wasn't ready to tell. When last call came, she stayed. Most people grumble, stumble out the door, or beg for one more shot. Lena just apologized, quietly. Said she lost track of time. I don't know why, but I let her stay. The second night, it rained. One of those bone-chilling drizzles that turned the sidewalks into mirrors and made the whole world seem muted. She showed up soaked but smiling, dripping rainwater onto the worn floorboards. She sat at the same booth, ordered the same drink. This time she asked about me, about things I hadn't told her. "You wanted to be a teacher once," she said, sipping the drink she barely touched. Before it all changed. I froze. I'd never told anyone at the bar about that. Hell, it had been almost a decade since I'd even thought about it. She laughed at my stunned expression. Soft, musical, like she enjoyed the confusion. "You were good," she said. "You would have been good at it." Before I could ask her how she knew, a loud crash echoed across the bar. The dartboard had fallen off the wall. No reason, no wind, no drunk stumbling into it. The regulars stared, wide-eyed. I went to pick it up. When I looked back, Lena was gone. Only the faint smell of rain and something sweeter, older, maybe jasmine, lingered in the air. I started asking questions the next day. The regulars hadn't noticed her. Danny, the owner, just shook his head when I described her. "No one new's been coming in lately," he said. "You sure you're not just seeing ghosts?" He meant it as a joke, but it didn't feel funny. Later that night, Danny pulled me aside and led me into the back office. The walls were lined with old photos, sepia-toned memories of a different world. Smiling bartenders, couples dancing, black tie parties. He pulled one photo down, an opening night photo dated 1952. In the far right, tucked into the edge of the frame, stood a woman. Blurry but unmistakable. It was Lena. Same jacket, same soft smile, same eyes that somehow looked right through you. Danny's face was pale. She was a regular back then. Used to sit in that booth every Friday. Sweet girl, always alone. He swallowed hard. Died in 56, hit by a drunk driver crossing the street after closing. I stared at the photo, feeling like the world had tilted sideways. Lena hadn't been looking for a drink. She had been looking for someone to remember her. I couldn't stay away. Every night after that, I half hoped, half feared, she'd come back. She did. 3 nights later, just as I was wiping down the bar at 1:30 a.m., she walked through the door. No rain this time, no other customers. Just her. She didn't go to the booth. She walked straight up to me, smiled that sad, heavy smile, and asked, "Would you dance with me?" The jukebox, dead silent all night, whirred to life. An old, slow song played. One I'd never heard before, something grainy and full of static, like it was being dragged from another time. I should have said no. I should have been scared out of my mind. But instead, I took her hand. Her skin was cold, but she felt real, solid. We danced alone in the empty bar, spinning slowly under the broken neon light. Her head rested lightly against my chest. Her breath misted in the air between us, cold despite the warmth in the room. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. The song ended. She pulled back, her hand lingering in mine, a moment longer than it should have. Tears welled up in her eyes, real tears. "Thank you for remembering me," she whispered. Then she kissed me on the cheek, soft as a sigh, and vanished. Gone, like she'd never been there at all. Except the booth where she always sat was empty now, but on the table, left behind, was a tiny pressed flower. Jasmine. The jukebox stopped. The neon sign flickered once, then burned steady. I don't work there anymore. I couldn't. The Clover Room went under 6 months later. New owners. New name. But sometimes when I'm walking alone at night, I catch the smell of rain and jasmine drifting down empty streets. And I remember Lena. If you ever find yourself alone at a dying bar, and a beautiful stranger smiles at you from under flickering neon, don't be afraid. She might just be looking for a dance, and someone to finally let her go. I've been bartending for almost 12 years. Late shifts, early mornings, the whole grind. You name it, I've seen it. Drunken brawls, tearful breakups, desperate flirting. But nothing ever got under my skin like working nights at Harper's Tavern. It was an old place. Real old. Original wood floors, tin ceiling, smelled like stale beer and memories no one wanted to remember. Opened in 1919, survived Prohibition, a fire in the 70s, and somehow still stood. Most nights were the same. Last call at 1:45 a.m., doors locked by 2:30. Clean up, count tips, go home. Except sometimes the nights dragged on too long, and when they did, you'd start noticing things. Shadows where there shouldn't be, laughter when no one was left, and sometimes someone still sitting at the bar. Long after you'd locked the doors. It started 2 Thursdays ago. Dead night. Maybe 6 customers all evening. By 1:30 a.m., everyone was gone but one guy. He sat at the far end of the bar. Old fedora pulled low over his face, hands wrapped around a whiskey he hadn't touched. Something about him felt wrong. I did the polite thing, told him last call, flashing the overhead lights twice. He didn't move, didn't speak. I walked closer. The air around him felt heavier, like trying to wade through water. Up close, I saw his drink wasn't whiskey. It was black, thick, like tar. No smell, no bubbles, just sitting there. When I tapped the bar in front of him and said, "Hey buddy, time to head out," he slowly lifted his head. No eyes, just black, empty holes where they should have been. I blinked, and he was gone. The glass sat there, full of that black liquid, leaving a perfect circle burned into the wood. I told my boss about it the next day. He didn't even flinch. "Fedora guy," he said. "Happens every couple years. Just clean up and don't talk to him." Like it was no big deal. Like a headless drunk was just part of the job. But it got worse. After that night, the jukebox started playing songs on its own. Old songs. Songs no one ever queued up. Scratchy records. Songs from the 30s and 40s, filled with static and warbled voices. The worst part? They only played when I was alone. One night, after locking up, I heard faint clapping coming from the empty bar floor. Slow, deliberate applause. I turned the lights on. No one there. But all the stools were turned to face me. Every single one. I thought about quitting. But Harper's doesn't let go of its people so easily. The following Friday, I was closing up. Normal night. Just me, the cash drawer, and the faint scent of bleach. At exactly 2:17 a.m., the jukebox whirred to life. A slow, sad jazz tune. And there he was, the man in the hat, sitting at the bar again, motionless. This time, he lifted his hand and beckoned me forward. I don't know why I obeyed. Fear? Curiosity? Some invisible pull? I walked right up to him. He spoke for the first time. A voice like splintered wood. "Last call. For you." The lights went out. I woke up in the alley behind Harper's, shirt torn, skin freezing. When I stumbled back inside, everything was normal, like nothing had happened. Except when I looked in the mirror behind the bar, my reflection was wrong. My eyes were black pits, just like his. I left Harper's that night and never went back. Didn't even pick up my last paycheck. But sometimes, when I drive by on the way home, I swear I see the silhouette of a man in a fedora, sitting inside, waiting, watching. If you ever find yourself at an old bar, alone after last call, and someone in a fedora wants to buy you a drink, don't sit down. And whatever you do, don't let them call your name. When I picked up the weekend shifts at the Lantern, I thought it was perfect. Quiet old bar tucked between two abandoned storefronts. Cash tips, easy hours. No corporate rules, no cameras breathing down your neck. It had an old soul. You could feel it when you walked in. The scuffed floors, the cracked leather booths, the tarnished mirrors behind the bar. The regulars were polite but strange. They all seemed to know each other, but not in a friendly way. More like survivors of the same shipwreck. They always sat in the same spots, ordered the same drinks, left at the same time, 11:45 p.m. sharp, every night. No exceptions. At first I thought it was a weird local tradition. Now, I know better. I first noticed him on my third night. He sat at the very end of the bar, back against the wall, drink untouched. He wore a wrinkled grey suit, like he'd been wearing it for years. A battered hat sat on the bar beside him. No one ever talked to him. He didn't order anything. He didn't blink. He just stared at the front door. The other regulars pretended not to see him. When I tried to ask Danny, the guy who trained me, he just said, "Leave him alone. It's not your night yet." Not my night yet. What the hell did that mean? I should have quit right then. Saturday night, a stranger came in. Mid-20s, leather jacket, cocky smile. Probably thought he found a cool dive to impress a date. He sat 2 stools down from the man in the grey suit, ordered a whiskey. When I slid the drink across, he raised his glass toward the silent man and said, laughing, "Cheers, old-timer." The man in the suit moved for the first time. He turned his head, smiled, and raised an invisible glass. The jukebox screeched, high-pitched feedback that made everyone cover their ears. The lights flickered, glasses shattered off shelves. When the noise stopped, the stranger was gone. Gone. No scream, no struggle, just an empty stool. The only sign he'd ever been there was the drink, still sweating on the bar. After that night, the regulars started looking at me differently. Less friendly, more watchful. I cornered one of them, a woman named Ruth, before she left. "What the hell's going on?" I demanded. Who was that guy? She just shook her head and said, "The lantern doesn't like strangers. You don't stay after midnight. You don't acknowledge the ones who already belong to it." Then she looked me dead in the eye and said, "And whatever you do, don't drink with them." I watched her and the others file out at exactly 11:45 p.m., like a funeral procession. I thought about leaving too, but some stupid mix of pride and curiosity made me stay. That final night, I locked the doors at 11:46 p.m. Big mistake. The air shifted. Thick, electric, wrong. I turned to find the man in the grey suit standing at the center of the room, not sitting, not smiling, waiting. Behind him, others began to appear. Shadowy figures filled the booths, faces blurred, hands reaching, drinks untouched, abandoned mid-toast. Their eyes, those that had them, burned with the same message. You stayed too long. The jukebox clicked on by itself. A warbled old tune played, a song with no words, just an endless, broken loop of sorrow. The man in the suit reached out to me. I ran. Or I thought I did. I don't know how long I've been here now. When I look in the cracked mirror behind the bar, I see myself, but faded, drained, part of the background. I serve drinks to new faces now. Watch them leave or stay. Warn them, quietly. But it's never enough, because the lantern always needs more. So if you find yourself in an old bar that feels a little too heavy, a little too full even when it's empty, check the time and leave before 11:45, because after that, you don't get to leave at all. There's an old bar called Mason's, tucked between a pawn shop and a boarded-up hardware store on the bad side of town. No website, no promotions. No one under 30 even seems to know it exists. I started working there after losing my job in the city. Needed cash, didn't ask questions. The first thing the owner, a wiry old man named Clay, told me was simple. 3 stools for customers. The 4th is off limits. You don't clean it, you don't serve it, you don't sit on it. He said it like he was reciting something sacred. I thought it was a joke, some quirky old tradition to add character to the place. I laughed. He didn't. He just looked at me with these dead serious eyes and said, "If someone tries to sit there, you pour salt under the seat and pray they leave before the lights flicker." It sounded insane, but I agreed. It was just a chair, right? For the first 2 weeks, nothing happened. 3 bar stools were used by the regulars. Big Tony, who drank whiskey straight. Susanna, who always nursed a rum and coke. Old Mitch, who barely spoke and sipped water with a splash of vodka. The 4th stool stayed empty. Always. It sat perfectly centered at the bar, a little more worn, a little darker, somehow. No one joked about it. No one bumped into it. It was like an invisible force field surrounded it. One night, I caught a new customer eyeing it, a traveler passing through town. He chuckled and said, "What's with the VIP seat?" and moved to sit. Before he could touch it, Mitch barked from the corner, "Don't." The traveler laughed it off, thinking it was some small town hazing. He sat anyway. That's when everything started to go wrong. The moment his weight hit the 4th stool, the lights overhead flickered once, then twice. The jukebox, which had been playing harmless old rock songs, cut out into static. The traveler, Chris, I think his name was, froze, looking around. I remembered what Clay had told me. Heart pounding, I grabbed the salt shaker we kept under the register and sprinted to the stool. I poured a thick line of salt in a circle around Chris's feet. He laughed again, but it was a nervous laugh this time. "You guys really go all in on the ghost stories, huh?" No one answered. The air felt thick, heavy, like breathing through wet wool. The other regulars quietly stood and backed toward the door. Chris stayed seated, confused. Then he started coughing, choking. His skin paled, his veins standing out under his skin like black wires. The stool beneath him creaked, strained, like something invisible pressed down on him harder and harder. I saw it then, out of the corner of my eye. A shape, just barely there, hovering near the fourth stool. It was wrong, bent, crawling almost, like it was stitched together from all the darkness in the room. It reached out, not to Chris but to the stool itself. It wanted him to stay. Clay burst through the door, carrying a rusted iron rod and a battered Bible. He shouted something in a language I didn't recognize and slammed the rod onto the bar near the stool. A crack, like a gunshot, echoed through the room. Chris was thrown backward off the stool, gasping like he'd been underwater. The shadow hissed, an awful, tearing sound, and sank into the cracks of the floorboards, vanishing. The lights steadied. The jukebox spun back up, playing some harmless Motown tune. Chris bolted out without grabbing his coat. He didn't even close the door behind him. Clay locked the door behind him and looked at me. "Never forget," he said, voice hoarse. "The fourth stool's already taken. Always has been." He never said by who. I never asked. Chris never came back. I checked local news. No mention of him ever checking into a motel, ever getting out of town. It was like the night swallowed him whole. Now, when I'm closing up, I make sure that fourth stool stays dusty, untouched. Sometimes, just before closing, I swear I see it shift slightly, like someone invisible sits down for just a second, just long enough to remind me. They're still there, waiting for the next fool who doesn't listen. So if you ever walk into a quiet old bar and see an empty seat that feels a little too empty, don't sit down, and whatever you do, don't stay after the lights flicker. If you're still here, still listening, it means you made it through another round of bar horror stories. But the night isn't over yet. If these tales stirred something in you, a memory you can't explain, a shadow you thought you saw, a feeling that you're not alone, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Mr. Nocturne for more true-style horror stories from the dark corners of the world, and share your own strange encounters down below in the comments. You never know who might be reading, and remember, some bars never really close. They just wait for someone like you.